Imagine a ticking clock, just this steady, relentless ticking right in the background.
Right. It's stressful just thinking about it.
Seriously. Because today is June 3, 2026, and if you are listening to this right now, well, you have exactly 19 days until the UGC NET June 2026 exam begins.
19 days.
Just 19. I mean, for anyone trying to, secure an assistant professorship or a junior research fellowship, that number it's basically enough to induce a mild panic attack.
Oh, absolutely. It's the ultimate countdown. You've got 19 days to take, like months or maybe even years of prep and just synthesize it.
Right, into one single performance.
Exactly. It's this high-stakes performance that essentially acts as the gateway to Indian academia. So the pressure to optimize every single waking hour right now, it's immense.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today we are diving into a highly specific, incredibly strategic study plan.
Yeah, and we're pulling this from a very detailed script by Suomoto Academy.
We are. Now, this plan is explicitly designed for visually impaired, or VX, and persons with benchmark disabilities, PwBD aspirants.
Which is a very specific demographic, right?
It is, but, and I want to be super clear right out of the gate here, even if you aren't taking this specific exam or, you don't fall into those categories, do not tune out.
Definitely don't.
Because what we're looking at today is literally a masterclass in learning efficiency. We're exploring how to master this massive amount of information under intense pressure by basically ruthlessly playing to your natural cognitive strengths.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this source material isn't just like a survival guide for a standardized test.
Right.
It is this fascinating intersection of academic strategy, cognitive science, and, accessibility rights.
100%.
We are really looking at a blueprint for claiming a space in academia on one's own terms, using your natural advantages and specialized technology to level a playing field that has, honestly, historically been incredibly uneven.
Claiming a space on your own terms.
I know.
That is such a powerful framework for this deep dive.
It really is.
But before we get into the exact daily breakdown of what you actually need to study, we need to understand the battlefield itself.
We have to look at the constraints.
Right. So let's map the landscape based on our sources.
Yeah.
The National Testing Agency, the NTA, they dropped the notification for this exam back on April 29th.
It feels like ages ago now.
Totally. And the actual exam window runs from June 22 to June 30, 2026.
And in the immediate future, there are two crucial logistical milestones you absolutely must have on your radar because you want to avoid an administrative disaster.
Nobody needs that kind of stress.
No, definitely not. So on June 10th, the city intimation slip is released. That basically just tells you the geographic location where you need to be.
Okay.
Then 5 days later, on June 15th, the actual admit card drops. And that's the one with your specific venue and shift details.
So you definitely want to set, calendar alarms for those dates right now,
Yeah.
June 10th and June 15th.
Absolutely.
Now, let's look at the exam format itself. It's broken into two shifts. You got a morning shift from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and then an afternoon shift from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m.
And it is an absolute marathon.
Oh, it really is. Because you're looking at paper one, right? That tests general teaching and research aptitude. That's 50 questions worth 100 marks, designed to take an hour.
Right.
Then you jump into paper two, which is your deep dive subject-specific paper. That one has 100 questions, 200 marks, and takes 2 hours.
So altogether, you're looking at 150 questions, 300 marks in a standard window of exactly 3 hours.
Exactly. But here's the thing. The most critical tactical detail from our sources, the thing that should really dictate your entire approach, is that there is no negative marking in paper one.
That is a game changer. I mean, that fundamental rule of engagement completely changes the risk profile of the exam.
How so? Break that down for us.
Well, the psychology of test taking often makes us super hesitant, right? We are conditioned by years of schooling to basically fear the wrong answer.
Oh, totally. The whole red pen mentality.
Exactly. Students often think, well, if I don't know it, I shouldn't guess because that's intellectually dishonest. Or they just become paralyzed by indecision trying to narrow down multiple choices.
But mathematically, in a system with zero negative marking, leaving a blank is literally the only guaranteed way to fail that specific question.
That's exactly it.
Think about it like a free swing in baseball or, free throw in basketball.
Yeah.
There is zero penalty for missing.
Right.
If you get it right, you get 2 marks. If you guess wrong, you get 0. You don't lose anything you already earned.
Yeah, so taking the free swing isn't just some reckless gamble, it's a mathematical imperative.
The sources heavily back this up. Never, ever leave a question blank on paper 1. If there are 10 seconds left and you have 5 unanswered questions, you pick a letter and you fill in those bubbles.
You are quite literally leaving points on the table if you don't do that. And, that strategy is pretty universal. However, we just discussed the standard 3-hour time limit. And for the specific audience this source material targets, that clock actually looks entirely different.
Yeah, the rules change here.
They do. There are crucial accessibility accommodations built into the system that completely shift the timeline.
What's fascinating here is how the system attempts to quantify and accommodate the actual physical mechanics of taking a test when you have a visual impairment.
Right, because it physically takes more time.
It does. For candidates with 40% or more visual impairment, the NTA provides compensatory time, and the formula they use is 20 extra minutes for every single hour of the exam.
So let's do the math on that. If the standard exam is 3 hours long, and you accumulate 20 extra minutes per hour,
that totals a full 60 extra minutes of compensatory time.
Exactly. It basically turns a 3-hour marathon into a 4-hour ultramarathon.
And 4 hours of sustained concentration under testing conditions, that is a grueling cognitive load.
It's exhausting just to think about.
And it brings us to how that time is actually used, specifically regarding how the questions are read and answered.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Because the traditional method for visually impaired candidates has been using a scribe, right? Another human being who sits next to you, reads the screen aloud, and clicks the answers that you dictate.
Yes, but our sources highlight a major recent rule change here.
A huge change.
The NTA now provides the scribe. Candidates are no longer allowed to bring their own. Plus, you have to secure a specific certificate from a government healthcare institution just to even qualify for this accommodation.
Which represents a massive shift in protocol.
It really does, because historically, candidates might bring a friend, right? Or a junior student, someone they trust.
Someone they know.
Exactly. Crucially, it would be someone they have actually practiced with. They would know each other's pacing. They'd establish little signals to, reread a dense sentence.
Right.
And they'd understand how to sound out really complex, subject-specific academic terms. But now, the NTA just assigns you a scribe on the morning of the exam.
I just have to point out how wildly stressful that sounds.
No, it's terrifying.
You are walking into a 4-hour, high-stakes exam that essentially determines your academic trajectory, and your primary interface with the test is a complete stranger.
Yeah.
What if they read too slowly? What if, their pronunciation of complex research terminology is just terrible?
Or what if they get fatigued? 4 hours is a long time to read aloud. They could start making transcription errors.
Exactly. Introducing a random human variable into a standardized test feels incredibly anxiety-inducing.
Well, that exact friction, the unpredictable human element you're describing, that is precisely why the landscape of accessibility is shifting right now.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So the sources point to a Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, or DEPWD, order from 2025.
Right.
And this order actually mandates the provision of screen reader-enabled computers for exams, actively moving away from human scribes.
But the sources also clarify that this order is currently in abeyance, right? Meaning it's paused.
It is paused, yeah. Until June 30th, 2026. Okay.
The writing, however, is very clearly on the wall here. The systemic trajectory is moving away from relying on human scribes, which, as we said, is fraught with inconsistencies.
Totally.
And it's moving toward empowering candidates to use screen reader technology independently. It's this fundamental shift from dependence on another person to total independence.
Which makes adapting to screen reader technology absolutely vital for the future.
Absolutely vital.
Okay, so we've established the timeline. We know the 4-hour duration. We understand the changing rules of engagement regarding scribes and tech.
Right.
But how do you actually conquer this massive, sprawling syllabus of Paper 1 in just 19 days?
It seems impossible.
It really does. But the sources provide a highly aggressive triage strategy.
Yes, they do.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because they don't just offer that generic advice to, study everything faster.
Well, which never works.
Never. They use a rigid bucket system. So think of it like triage in an emergency room. You have a waiting room full of patients, and you obviously cannot treat them all at once.
Right.
You have to allocate your limited resources to the most critical patients first to have the biggest impact. In this case, capturing the highest probability points on the exam.
Triage is just the perfect analogy here because when time is your scarcest resource, Treating all information as equally important is just a failing strategy.
It's a recipe for burnout.
Exactly. You must ruthlessly prioritize based on two main factors. First, the statistical probability of a topic actually appearing on the test.
Okay.
And second, your natural ability to score efficiently in that specific area.
Let's apply that to bucket 1 then, the high priority bucket. The critical patients in our ER, so to speak.
Right.
This includes teaching aptitude, research aptitude, and logical reasoning.
Important ones.
Very. For teaching aptitude, the sources predict 5 to 6 questions, advising candidates to focus deeply on the underlying concepts rather than trying to, memorize facts.
Makes sense.
Then for research aptitude, the key is knowing definitions cold, especially the nuanced distinction between quantitative and qualitative research, which the sources note just shows up constantly.
Oh, yeah, always.
But the real gem in this bucket is logical reasoning.
Yeah.
Number series, analogies, syllogisms.
Yes, and this is where we see the absolute psychological brilliance of this specific strategy for this specific demographic.
How so?
Well, the sources emphasize that visually impaired aspirants often possess a significant natural edge in logical reasoning.
Really?
Yes, because navigating the physical world with a visual impairment requires the constant development of a highly trained, incredibly robust auditory working memory.
Oh, wow. That makes total sense when you break it down like that.
Right.
Because if you're constantly holding spatial information, public transit directions and conversational details in your working auditory memory just to safely navigate a city,
Exactly.
then holding a complex number series or a 4-part syllogism in your head to solve it, that's basically playing right to your everyday strengths.
Yeah, it's utilizing a built-in cognitive muscle that is already heavily exercised. It beautifully reframes a physical disability into a highly specialized cognitive advantage for this specific testing domain.
That is amazing.
You aren't just trying to keep pace with cited candidates. In the realm of auditory logical processing, you are uniquely equipped to excel.
Okay, so moving down the triage line, we have bucket 2. This is medium priority.
Right.
This includes reading comprehension, communication, and data interpretation, or DI.
DI is a big one.
Yeah. The advice for reading comprehension is to attempt it fully, provided your listening speed via a screen reader is really highly proficient.
Right.
Communication requires only 1 or 2 light revision passes. But data interpretation. This is fascinating.
Yeah, I love this part.
Because the instinct for anyone with a visual impairment might be to just immediately skip a section that is traditionally based on complex visual charts, right? Like bar graphs and pie charts.
Of course, that's the assumption.
Yet the sources literally scream, do not skip DI.
Because skipping it would be a huge mistake. The NTA actually provides an accessible alternative format for data interpretation.
Oh, they do?
Yes. Instead of a complex visual graph, they provide what is known as a caselet.
Okay, what is a caselet?
It's essentially a paragraph-based, text-heavy description of the data.
Let's talk about why that matters.
Yeah.
Because trying to navigate a standard data table with a screen reader just sounds like a nightmare.
Oh, it's awful. It just reads endless, disconnected rows and columns of numbers. You lose all spatial context immediately.
You'd just be hearing like row 4, column C, 45%. It means nothing.
Precisely. Translating a visual grid into linear audio is just cognitively exhausting. But a caselet changes the cognitive load from spatial mapping to narrative comprehension.
I see.
A screen reader can process a paragraph seamlessly. It basically turns a visual puzzle into a reading comprehension exercise that just happens to involve numbers.
That's brilliant.
Right. And by understanding this alternative format actually exists, candidates realize they can capture those points rather than abandoning them based on a misconception.
That is so key.
Wow.
All right, that brings us to bucket 3, which is low priority.
The scan bucket.
Exactly. This is the material you just scan. Information and Communication Technology, or ICT, environment, higher education, and governance.
Right.
The strategy here dictates giving governance a very light-touch scanning environment using insert textbooks and recent news.
Just the highlights.
Yep. And for higher education, focus strictly on the NEP 2020. That's the National Education Policy.
Right, because its inclusion in the 2026 paper is pretty much guaranteed.
Almost guaranteed, yeah. But wait, I have to push back on this triage logic for a second.
Sure.
Giving broad subjects like environment and governance just a light scan? I mean, that feels like a massive gamble.
It does feel risky.
What if the NTA throws a curveball and heavily loads the test with bucket 3 questions?
Well, it feels risky, but it's a calculated risk based on historical data. The sources rely on the analysis of previous year questions, or PYQs.
Okay.
Statistically, the volume and predictable nature of questions from Bucket 1 just far outweigh the scattered, unpredictable nature of Bucket 3. You're playing the probabilities here.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, let's look at the ICT section in Bucket 3. This covers basic computer concepts, right?
Right.
Aspirants who use screen readers to navigate their computers, their smartphones, their entire digital existence, they are already power users.
Oh, let's dive into the why of that. Because a sighted user generally interacts with a computer on a very superficial level.
Very superficial.
Like they use a mouse to click a colorful folder icon to open it.
Mm-hmm.
But a screen reader user has to understand the actual file directory path. They have to conceptualize the nested hierarchy of the operating system.
Exactly.
And they have to memorize dozens of keyboard shortcut commands just to navigate to that exact same folder.
They aren't just looking at the surface interface of the software, they are manipulating its skeleton.
The skeleton, wow.
Because they interact with the underlying architecture of the digital world daily, they inherently understand operating systems and digital environments far better than the average sighted user.
Right.
They don't need to study basic ICT for an exam, they live it.
They already live in the matrix.
Exactly.
So that is a triage strategy. But, a strategy is just an abstract theory until you actually put it on a calendar.
Right. You need a schedule.
And with exactly 19 days left, how do we operationalize this? Well, the sources give us a highly structured 19-day battle plan broken into 3 distinct phases.
Okay, let's hear it.
Phase 1 is consolidation. This covers days 1 through 8, which is June 3rd to June 10th.
Right.
The singular focus here is Bucket 1, the high-priority topics. The suggested daily routine is rigid. 1 hour of concept revision, 1 hour of multiple choice question or MCQ practice, and 30 minutes of checking progress.
That structure is incredibly vital. Let's look at the cognitive science of that MCQ practice for a second.
Yeah, please.
A common mistake people make is taking a really long test and waiting until the very end to check all the answers.
I used to do that all the time.
Most people do. But by the time you realize you got question 5 wrong on a 50-question test, your brain has already temporarily cemented the incorrect logic you used to solve it.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So doing 1 hour of MCQs followed immediately by 30 minutes of checking progress. That creates an instant feedback loop.
I see.
It rewires the neural pathway right away, correcting the misconception before it sets in your memory.
So it's 2.5 hours of highly focused, deeply intentional work.
Exactly.
Then we hit phase 2, which is mock tests. This spans days 9 through 14, June 11th to 16th.
The pressure's on now.
Yeah, because now you integrate Bucket 2, the medium priority material. But the core action in this phase is taking a full mock test every other day.
Wow.
And they set a brutal hard target for this. You want to consistently hit 35 or more correct answers in 55 minutes.
That is fast.
It is. Oh, and don't forget, right in the middle of this phase, on June 15th, you must download that admit card.
Right. Logistically crucial. The transition from phase 1 to phase 2 is really the transition from acquiring knowledge to executing under pressure.
Exactly.
Those mock tests are not just about testing your knowledge. They are about building physical and mental stamina for that massive 4-hour window and getting completely comfortable with the audio interface you'll be using on test day.
Which brings us to the final hurdle, phase 3, the final sprint.
The hardest part for some.
Days 15 to 19, June 17th to the 21st. The rule here from the sources is absolute. Strictly revision, absolutely nothing new.
Nothing new.
You do a special 20-minute review of that NDP 2020 document we mentioned, and then, on the night of June 21st, you go to sleep early.
Get some rest.
Now, I have to admit, I get incredibly anxious just thinking about phase 3.
Why is that?
Because the urge to cram right up until you walk through the doors of the exam hall is so deeply ingrained in student culture.
Oh, it's a hard habit to break.
If I have a free hour the night before, the instinct is just to try and memorize just one more concept. Why advocate for such a draconian, nothing new rule?
Because last-minute cramming fundamentally misunderstands how human memory actually functions, particularly under high stress.
Okay.
Introducing novel concepts right before an exam triggers a cognitive phenomenon known as retroactive interference.
Retroactive interference. Okay, break that down for us. What does that mean?
Think of your memory as a carefully organized, physical filing cabinet.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Over the first 14 days of this plan, You have been neatly filing away all this crucial high-yield information from bucket 1 and bucket 2.
Nice and tidy.
Right. You know exactly which drawer holds which concept. Now, if you try to frantically shove a bunch of brand new, poorly understood files into that cabinet the night before the exam.
Everything gets messed up.
Exactly. You don't just fail to remember the new stuff, you actually disrupt the meticulous organization of the old stuff. The new information actively interferes with your brain's ability to locate and retrieve the information you already successfully learned.
So by desperately trying to learn one new fact at midnight, I might accidentally overwrite or just block access to the 10 foundational concepts I spent 2 weeks mastering?
That is the real danger.
Yeah.
In the final days, your brain requires consolidation, not acquisition. It needs quality sleep to synthesize and stabilize the data. So that early bedtime on June 21st, it isn't just about feeling physically rested.
Right.
It is a neurological imperative for reliable memory retrieval the next morning.
Respect the filing cabinet.
Respect it.
Do not shove new papers in there at the last second.
Definitely not.
So you have the timeline, you understand the rules, you have the syllabus triaged into actionable buckets, and you have a day-by-day, 19-day schedule grounded in cognitive science.
It's a solid.
We've mapped out a grueling battle plan. But if you are visually impaired, trying to execute that plan on standard, highly visual websites is like trying to run a sprint in quicksand.
That's a great way to put it.
The friction of the technology itself gets in the way of the learning. The standard web is full of, floating menus, visual pop-ups, dynamic layouts.
It's awful.
For a sighted user, it's just visual clutter. For a screen reader, it's an impenetrable wall of messy code that the software has to read linearly, top to bottom.
It takes forever to get through.
It does. And that brings us to our sources, introducing a specific tool built to completely remove that friction. The Suomoto Academy platform.
This is where the strategy becomes uniquely and powerfully tailored to the audience.
Yes.
Suomoto is described in the source material as India's first fully audio-guided, keyboard-driven learning platform built exclusively for visually impaired and PwBD aspirants.
The key word there is keyboard-driven.
Very important.
There is no mouse required, no visual screen needed, no scribe necessary.
Wow.
And it is compatible out of the box with all the major screen readers. JWS, NVDA, VoiceOver, TalkBack. It just strips away the visual noise of the internet and meets the user exactly where they are.
The architecture is really clever, too. It's structured around 4 core sections.
Let's go through them.
First is Prepare, which guides users from basic to advanced concepts. Then Practice, offering topic-wise MCQs with instant spoken explanations.
And as we discussed earlier, that instant feedback is crucial.
It is. It doesn't just tell you that you selected the wrong option. It explains the why immediately through audio, closing that learning loop.
Then there's the Progress section, which actively tracks accuracy, hunts down weak spots, and actually automatically generates personalized schedules.
That's huge.
Finally, Perform, which provides the environment to take those full mock tests and previous year questions necessary for phase 2 of our battle plan.
Right, the 55-minute runs.
Exactly. Now, the sources mentioned the basic modules are free, while premium access is 500 rupees a month.
Right.
So what does this all mean? The sources point out a really interesting economic angle here regarding the cost of accessibility.
Yeah, I found this fascinating.
They frame this 500 rupees not as a subscription fee, but as a stark ROI calculation.
Return on investment.
Exactly. Investing a relatively small amount for independent, frictionless preparation versus the potential lifelong financial stability of landing a junior research fellowship or, a tenured government professorship.
This raises an important question regarding the underlying philosophy of such platforms. The source script actually states something really profound. Independence is not a privilege, it is a right.
That line really stuck with me.
It goes back to the traditional testing model we discussed earlier, relying on a stranger to read for you, hoping they pronounce things correctly, hoping they don't get tired.
Right.
That is a forced dynamic of dependence. When a platform allows a candidate to learn in their own language, at their own speed, entirely through their own chosen voice interface,
There does everything.
it fundamentally alters the power dynamic of education. It shifts the locus of control entirely back to the student, exactly where it belongs.
It is absolute empowerment through design.
It really is.
Okay, let's bring all these threads together. 19 days, 150 questions, 4 hours of testing time.
Big numbers.
1 exam to claim a rightful place in academia. If you are taking this test, remember the core tenets of the strategy. Triage the massive syllabus. Trust the auditory memory you use every single day.
Yes.
Leverage your natural tech advantages to navigate the digital test. Respect the filing cabinet, and do not cram at the end.
Sleep early.
And for the love of everything, do not leave a single question blank on paper 1. Take the free swing.
Please do. And, as you execute this plan, I want to leave you with one final thought based on the specific timeline we explored today.
Okay.
We talked about that DEPD 2025 order.
Sure.
The government mandate pushing for independent screen reader-enabled testing across the board.
Right, the mandate that is currently caused.
Right. It is in abeyance exactly until June 30th, 2026.
Wait a minute, June 30th?
Yes. That is the very last day of this specific UGC NET exam window.
Oh, wow.
Which means as of July 1st, that pause could end. What does that signify for the broader landscape of education?
A huge shift.
This specific June 2026 exam isn't just the end of a frantic 19-day prep cycle. It might very well be the absolute final exam of the Scribe era in India.
That gives me chills.
The candidates preparing independently right now, today, utilizing screen readers and keyboard-driven platforms, they aren't just studying to pass a personal test.
Right.
By proving this model works, they are actively prototyping the future of digital accessibility for the entire nation.
They are literally the vanguard of a new system.
They are.
So if you're listening to this, hear that ticking clock not as a countdown to panic, but as a countdown to your moment. The future of academia is accessible, and it starts with exactly how you choose to spend these next 19 days.